Are you an indie podcast or content creator looking to reach a wider audience? Look no further. Introducing Podcastic, the ultimate podcast network designed exclusively for indie creators like you. At Podcastic, we believe in the power of unique voices and fresh perspectives. We're here to amplify your passion and creativity, connecting you with a growing community of engaged listeners who crave original content. Podcastic is more than just a platform. It's a support system built for indie podcasters, offering a range of resources to help you succeed. From tailored promotional campaigns to professional production assistance, we're here to help you shine. Our intuitive platform makes it easy for you to be seen and heard. We do all the heavy lifting for you. You just show up and create. Plus, with our advanced analytics, you'll gain valuable insights into your audience's preferences, allowing you to refine your content and grow your fan base. Ignite your passion, expand your reach, and thrive with podcasting. Visit our website at www.podcasticlife.com to get started. Podcasting, the home for indie podcasts and content creators.
Every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is gonna get called.
I'm not coming back.
Emiy Apparel, encourage me, I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emiy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to Emiy TV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
Hey, this is Heather Heteru. I know you were looking to see Calvin to my left, but guess what? Calvin is in Washington, D.C. He's on a mission with our other co-host, Dave Patterson, to expose and reveal their fatherhood magazine, Our Fathers. Yes. Yes. Blessings. And so this is Heather Heteru. I am hosting our Emiy TV Put Your Family First podcast. Today I am running solo. Hopefully I'll have a chance to introduce you to some very special people, and they'll be calling in if they have a moment to do that today. I'm really excited today because our first subject of the first Monday of each month is about Boy Matters. And so as we are entering into our Father's Day celebration month, I really want to highlight a couple of things about our topic today. And because we're talking about healthy fatherhood and wellness, I want to challenge our listeners to think about, one, the fathers in their lives, fathers, godfathers, uncles, father figures, those who have assumed that role in your life, and really what you think you should celebrate about them. And one of the reasons why that's important, especially to the women for this month, is that our Ready Women Collective is hosting a fatherhood award ceremony. I'm so excited about that. That's coming up June the 22nd. Tickets are $15. It's for a light brunch, but it's an opportunity for you to publicly recognize a father, a husband, a son, somebody who you know who has put real effort into fatherhood. We don't recognize it and acknowledge it enough, and I do think that is changing. That mindset is changing. While we can talk about what we don't have, and we can talk about what they were not to us, you cannot deny that everybody has one. And God has such not just a sense of humor, but he has a sense of irony that we can all sometimes miss when we may have an absent father, or our father is not, we don't have access to our fathers. He always has a ram in the bush. That means that there is someone that might be a teacher, it might be a neighbor, it might be the man at the grocery store, it might be that person who still pours into your life. It could be a coach, it could be your doctor, it could be your therapist, this, but there is somebody there that can continue to pour into your life so that the essential nutrients that you might need, it may not be at the quantity that you need, but it's there. And we don't acknowledge them enough. And I'm just going to tell you a quick story that when I was growing up, my neighbor, Mr. Pitts, and he had a son, of course. He was a little bit older than me, but so I fell in love with the son, Mr. Pitts. But anyway, he was a little too old for me when I proposed to him. I was 5, and he was like 25. But that's a different story. But Mr. Pitts was my neighbor, and my routine from the time I was a little girl, like when you're outside and you don't know that you don't have on clothes, and you don't know that you need shoes and all those kind of things. So I was very young, 2, 3 years old. I would go sit on Mr. Pitt's porch with him, because in the morning he did 2 things. He cleaned his yard. His yard was immaculate, and he fed the squirrels. And so he always had a bag of peanuts, and Mr. Pitts did not mind me sitting with him, talking up a storm. When I was done talking or I was exhausted from talking, I would tell him goodbye, and he would wait till the next time I would come. And so he just served as that. He was just like a grandfather figure. And so there were a lot of people that I grew up with on my block that were that grandfather figure, just starting up. And now that I understand why they were saying get off my grass or go sit on your porch or does your mom know you're down here, like when you would hear those comments, I didn't realize or recognize. It was just, sometimes you just have, well, that's just old mean people, thoughts, right? But I really didn't recognize that they were really looking out for me and making sure that I was safe and other kids on my block were safe. And so I want to just take a moment and acknowledge the men on Glen Court between Linwood and Dexter. That's all the way down. That's 3 long blocks of men who were looking out for the children on the block. So bravo to you. And many of them have passed on, but I want to make sure that those men in my life get their flowers even today. So I want to thank again the men on Glen Court from Linwood to Dexter, and there were other men throughout the neighborhood, but those are the ones that I saw on a daily basis that were always looking out, and the ones that made our block club celebrations amazing every July, because they were always in July. So I'm sorry, I was just reminiscing. It just kind of came out that way when I started to think about healthy fatherhood and how the first father, right? If you can look at, if you think God is and you address him as our father, then that's the first one, right? And if you do make that connection, then you have in the back of your mind, if you're not conscious and aware, you're still making that connection with the other fathers. So we honor that father. We honor our birth father. And again, whether they're absent or not, they played a part in us getting here. So if no other level of connection is the fact that they implanted that seed into your mother and you are here, if for no other reason, just to make sure that you are existing in this world, that they're here, then acknowledge them for that. All right. And so, I want to talk a little bit about our June 22nd event coming up, and then I'm going to frame this conversation a little bit better because there's some real interesting articles and research that I want to share with you. June 22nd, our annual Fatherhood Award ceremony is awarded to 3 men, and there's a man that represents each one of the fathers of the organizers of this event. So that's Crystal L. Gunn, her father, Dr. Suzanne Jarrett, her father, and then, of course, my father, Glenn K. Miller. Each one of us selected a man who we believe epitomizes fatherhood, either the aspects of our fathers that we loved or the aspects of our fathers that we wanted to have. And so this way we get to celebrate all of our fathers in a way that acknowledges all of who they are and those who are also a part of that, who we see in the community. So my honoree is Damon English. And Damon English actually had a chance to spend time with, get to know my father, and is such an important man in my life. He's such an important community figure. He and his brothers own the Crab House on 7 Mile near Evergreen. So if you are a patron of the Crab House, you already know how the Englishmen are. And, of course, that is a lot of their father, Mr. English, poured into his sons. And so it's just amazing to see committed men. It's amazing to see committed fathers, because they're all fathers, and to see them in the community and how they support the community, how they come out, how they show up. And they show up in a lot of different ways. And ironically, Damon's oldest brother I went to high school with, and somebody who I've always respected and who I actually appreciate. And so I have a close connection to this family, and I have actually seen Damon and the kind of man that he is, but also the type of father that he is. And as a father, he's a girl dad, so he has 2 daughters, and he has a son. And his son just went to prom, and he is actually graduating this week. So bravo, Damon Jr. We're so proud of you, and Dad, as you're there every step of the way in the lives of your children. I think that makes you just a phenomenal dad, that you're present and that you're always there and you're always looking out for their best interests and you're always communicating with your children. That's another thing that I really appreciate about you. You have the conversation. You can talk about your why. You always share those things with them. And, I think that was one of the things that I learned to value about my dad, is that when there was something, when I was growing up, my father wasn't always able to express how he felt about the why he did something. And I always pressed him on that. I know you guys heard my story a couple times. I've always pressed him about my why, or why did you decide this? Why can't I do this? And I appreciate, Damon, that you naturally allow that why to be expressed to your children. You may not agree and they may not agree, but it's not because you didn't share it with them. And so I really value that about you. And I can't wait to celebrate you on June the 22nd. And leading up to that point, I'm going to be sharing videos. I'm going to be sharing my story with you. I'm going to share all the amazing things that I think you are as a father, as a man in the community, as a man in our village, because you understand what the village mindset is. We know that our community is ill. Our community is suffering from mental illness, from suicide, from depression, from anxiety, from violence. Our community is ill. But what I value about you and your family is that you're always pouring the good back into it. You're hiring our people in your business. You're supporting organizations like you've supported Emiy before. You provide quality food. You provide healthy options, and you provide hospitality and good customer service. And it may seem like a little thing, but customer service will stress a person out on both ends, whether you are the person behind the counter or you're the person requesting an order. It is important both ways, and I appreciate and value your excellence in how you treat people. Everywhere you go, you always have a kind word, a nod, a hello. You always are there to be an example of what we need to see in more men. So thank you. Again, I applaud you. I am so grateful to have you in my life, and I am so grateful and blessed that I have an opportunity to acknowledge you in front of the world, in front of our guests on June 22nd. So if you know Damon English and you want to be a part of that, or if you have a man, a father, a husband that you want to acknowledge, this is a great time to do that. So if you can go to my website to order tickets. So that's www. Come in. Come sit right here. Guess who just walked in? Damon English. So you didn't hear anything I said, did you?
No.
Oh.
It was really nice.
Well, you can get the instant replay. So you're going to need to put your headphones on. Thank you for making that. Did you get my message about the press?
Yes.
Okay. And he pressed anyway. Thank you.
You're welcome. For you. You're welcome.
Thank you. So I'm just going to share really quickly that after all of that talk I just shared, that Damon English just entered the studio and he has no idea of what I just said about him. So I'm going to send him the link to the show to make sure he hears all of that.
Wonderful.
Okay, so we were talking about the event coming up for June 22nd.
Okay.
I was telling my why you were selected to be the Glenn K. Miller Award recipient this year. Like I said, you have to hit an instant replay for that one.
I will definitely do that.
So I know this is my framework in front of you. So
Okay.
Our listeners know that I normally have this framework session. I always like to frame our conversations before we get started. But I'm gonna give Damon a minute to kind of look at some of the questions that I'm gonna ask.
Okay.
You there, and I'm going to talk for a little bit because we did have a second guest, Dr. Nicole Sala Scruggs, and with EW Healing, and she was also one of our guests. And I know at some point she may be able to tune in or call in, but if not, we'll have to connect with her another time. But I think it's important to look at fatherhood, to look at where our males are in terms of our wellness, and she really brings that strong, and I appreciate her. She has been working with our family, so of course, I'm the only female in my family, and then I have my son, and then I have a husband, and so she's been really coaching us around our lifestyle change, about healthy choices, and doing this overall body reset. So we are a little more than a weekend. It's pretty rough on you, girl. Let me just say, it's a lot of work. The preparation is a lot of work. See, the guys get to come in and just get the instruction and go on about their day, but it's a lot of preparation that goes into this whole body reset. So I'm excited to have her share her journey. So we'll have to bring her back so that she can do that. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about and ask Damon some questions about his journey as a father, his journey. I was telling everybody that we grew up in the same neighborhood and that your brother, we went to high school together. So, and just the whole English vibe that you guys bring.
It's a vibe. It's definitely a vibe.
It's a vibe. So I'm gonna start pouring questions into Damon since he is here in person. So I wanted to ask him first. So your first question is, please tell us about the Fatherhood Award nomination, how that impacted you when you received the information. How did it impact you?
First, thank you. I was shocked. I was very shocked to know. I knew you had something brewing. I didn't know what. And gratefully, I have been busy, so I hadn't had time to focus on it. But the first thing I was shocked. The second thing, honestly, was validation. Sometimes as dads and as mothers, as parents, we need to hear that we're doing it right or that we're doing it halfway decent. There is no child that comes out the womb with an owner's manual. So you have to figure this out. And in most cases, you trying with the first kid and you getting it with the second kid. And then once you get to the third child, then you pretty much might have it under control, but then they might be out of control. So then you have a whole nother situation you're dealing with.
Right.
And as a father, sometimes it's difficult. And I am a divorcee. So as a divorced father of my children, from my children's mother, because of the separation of the homes, sometimes you have to get more in tune, and sometimes you don't know if you're in tune enough or if you need to be more in tune. And you have that example that was set out for you, but as we know that our parents that raised us, the children that we are raising now are not the same kids. So they have a whole nother dynamic. So we are learning as we do this thing, and sometimes for me it has been some challenges. I have questioned myself as a father. I've questioned myself as a man. I've questioned myself as a business owner. I've questioned myself in every aspect that you can. when it comes to this journey, and the journey has not been easy for me. But as I continue to go, and I did, to be honest with you, before I accepted this award, I asked my kids, could I? If I was not deserving of this award from you all, I would not have accepted it. And that is one thing, because I appreciate the honor, I appreciate the nomination, but the truth is, these kids are who this impacts the most. And sometimes, with my kids being soon to be 22, 18, and 16, they have their mind on whether or not I did okay or not.
But they're not always reliable sources.
Yeah,
they're not always credible sources.
This is true. But because the struggle was there, I needed more validation from the kids, and they gave it to me.
They better. They did. Hunt them down and scrape some toenails.
They did, and I appreciated it, and I really did. They actually gave me some pats on the back, and it couldn't have come at a better time. I go in and out, because you're not just, for me, I'm not just raising children. I'm trying to raise good citizens. I'm trying to raise good workers. I'm trying to raise good people. I hope that my sons and my daughters become good husbands and wives one day, and have some of the stuff that they seen. When I talk to my son and I teach him how to do something, I don't teach him because I want him to do the chore. If he's cutting the grass, I tell him, son, I'm showing you how to do this, so when you have yours, your grass is cut, because no one is going to pull up to a house where a man lives and says, that woman is not taking good care of that grass. It's just not going to happen. And I mean, people have their way of looking at things, and this is mine. Okay. If the lights are not cut, if the lights are turned off, I believe they're going to look at that man. If the house is in a disarray, it doesn't matter who, in 2024 even, it still falls in these domestic roles that people still tend to see. And, I have to tell him, like, son, you have to make sure that happens. You don't want your wife on the side of the road out of gas. It's not necessarily going to be a reflection of her. On some kind of way, it's going to fall on you, and just as a lot of things fall on men. So I try to teach him that. Even with my girls, I teach them to do it until they have someone to help them do it. So yes, you would learn how to cut the grass as well, just so you know how to do it. And of course, I pull up and do it until you don't have somebody, but I want you to know how to do it. Right. So it's just some of those core values. But back to the answer to the question, shocked, and very, very honored to receive such a nomination. It is probably not many things that's more important to me than being a dad.
Wow. How about that?
It's just not. My children is what keeps my name. My children are what represents me, and I represent them as well. So, you have to be careful and mindful of what they see, what they do, and what example you set. It's work. I mean, because you're working as a dad no matter what. Even to this day, I went and saw my dad today, and he's been in and out of the hospital and rehab for the past month. And seeing my dad, he's my hero, and it's not that he sought out to be my hero. He just sought out to just be a man, and it actually just worked out that way. He showed me how to do stuff, or he showed my brother, who showed me, as I'm the youngest child. I have a respect for him that will never go away, and that's what I mean by the differences of, this generation. I know my dad can't beat me, but I treat him as if he can, because I know that he's put that type of respect in me to be able to respect him in whatever he can't do. I try to make sure that it happens because I know he wouldn't normally do it. So he still shines. You know, he and I have that relationship. I know Mother's Day is coming. We know the drill. He's going to send me to get what's needed, and he's going to tell me, pick it like I would pick it. And I know how to pick it because he showed me how to pick it. He buys the most beautiful cars for my mother, and I always try to make sure that he does what, you know, that I do, that whatever it was that he would expect to do. And we just check in and make sure he's good. And he got 3 boys. But we make sure he's good because of what he left. And I want to hope that one day I can depend on my children to do the same for me if I'm not able to do.
Right.
And I may have to call them, but I hope that when I ask them that they can provide.
Right.
You know, and it's a very important thing, you know. It's a very important thing.
So talk to me a little bit about raising a son versus raising a daughter. What are some of the differences that you found on your journey?
Girls rough. Girls are rough. Their emotions and their space that they're in, you have to first find out where that space is. And sometimes when you are given advice, because you know my wife would definitely give me some advice about how to treat them, but then once she gives me the advice, she's going to give me the advice from her perspective, and then I'm going to find that she's not the same as that one, and now I got to tweak this a little bit, and it's a lot that goes on with it. My son was different. All I had to do was show him I trust him.
Really?
Yeah, when I showed him I trusted him, it made a difference. I told my son my secrets. I would tell him stuff that I wouldn't tell anybody else. If we're getting ready to go on vacation, if we're going on a trip, I say, hey son, listen, between you and I'm trying to figure out where we're going on vacation, and we'll talk about it. And then he'll tell me, or I'll tell him, hey, Damon, what do you think about such and such? Hey, don't tell nobody, but, you know, I'm about to do this. And he'd be like, really? I'm like, yeah, but just keep it under your hat. I only told him because I wanted him to be able to trust me and know that I trusted him. And if I ask him, you know, hey, look, this is between me and you and I, so make sure that this don't get out. And once I developed that kind of relationship with him, it was just a little different. If I call him, it's something different. When I communicate with my son, a lot of people, I envy them. I do. The ones that have those daughters that are right there, Johnny on the spot, and do anything they ask, and daddies are wrapped around daughters' fingers, and vice versa. I don't have that luxury.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. There's a figuring out that has to happen in most cases. Now, you know, we got one that's 15, should be 16 in a couple of weeks now.
Oh my gosh.
Erin is a different struggle because she has a lot of personality, but because she has so much personality, the business slides under the radar. So you don't see everything that's going on because she's likable and lovable, and she has a lot of energy. But then when you go to school and talk to the teachers and the counselors and get caught up, it's almost like it's even a shock to the counselors that she's not doing what she needs to be doing because she's just such a socialite. My son, he's not as much as a socialite. And then I have the daughter who's wanting, you know, she wants that adult life. And I tell my kids all the time, statistically, they say you got 18 years to be a kid, and then you got the rest of your life to be an adult, so what's the rush? I try not to rush them into adult life. I don't need you to go into some big rush to be grown. It sucks. You know,
right.
Adult life is not it.
You should see Monique. She's in all agreement over here.
You know, you have to do. You know, if it doesn't happen, you have to do it. And then there's, you know, hopefully you're ready for it. Hopefully you understand everything that was told to you. And, you know, when I never forget the last time that I know my daughter to move out. And she came in the room and she told me she wanted to talk to us. And she told me that she was moving. And I said, when? And she said, right now. I said, okay, you sure you want to do that? And I did end up getting upset. But it was just to have to watch your child make a bad choice or make a bad decision. It's heartbreaking, it's frustrating, it's hard to look at, especially with the girls. And because I'm more of a daddy's kid than a mother's child, I love my mother. My mother's amazing. She's awesome. She's
indeed she is
the best mother I've seen so far. They don't make them like that anymore. But
absolutely.
Because that was so easy. My dad, I kind of knew the story and the struggle. You know, he came. I knew how my mother's struggle was. It was a little different though. But my mother was the youngest girl of, I believe, 9 or 10 kids, and my dad was the second oldest of about 9 or 10 kids. But it was boys versus girls on the other end. So my dad had 2 sisters, and my mom had 2 brothers, or 3, but 2. And my grandfather lived to be 88, and I never met my grandmother on my mom's side. So she was gone before my mother didn't know her. Okay. So she had this dad figure who she had to pick up slack. So when she got old enough, she took care of stuff. And so she was kind of built and ready for it. And same with my dad. But my dad had, he had chores and he had stuff, and my grandfather was rough. So because he was rough, all my dad did was he did what his dad did. And then he realized later he didn't have to do that, and statistically we watch it all the time. Parents are hard on the kids, and then grandkids get away with murder. And but that's because they was figuring it out, and then they realized it didn't take all that. Well, I watched it, so I learned that it didn't take all that. But I'm still a little more stern than most. And I get a little slack from my honey from time to time, Miss Paula K. And because she don't like to see the harsh.
All right.
But the reality is that sometimes you just gotta it's gonna be a little bit of you that's gonna always, a little bit of your parents are always gonna come out. And with raising and with the oldest kids, it's kind of like watching them. My son was vocal because we had that verbal relationship. My attempts of constantly trying to build a relationship with verbal and talking to me, for whatever reason, for my kids, the girls didn't really take on to that trust to say I can come talk to you. So I will always have to figure it out. And with the girls, it's always a figure out. It's a constant trying to figure out when it comes to women in my life. But when it comes to my son, he came to me. He came to me even when he's graduating Thursday.
Yes.
And he came to me about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and we were leaving church. And after the service, he's like, I'm just kind of nervous about being on my own and going out. I don't think I'm ready. I don't know. And I said, son, it's okay to be nervous. I said, but trust me, you are far above where a lot of kids aren't, And I know when you hear us tell you where we were at this age, it's a little different because we were a little different. So, I told him, I said, son, you're 17 years old, and, you may not be driving every day, but the reality is you know how to cook, you know how to clean, you know how to do certain things around the house, you know how to put stuff together. I rely on you. When I get something or I buy something and I need something put together, I just give it to him. I let him figure it out, and I let him use his hands. And he does it, so I had to tell him, son, it's a lot of kids your age that don't know how to do this. It's a lot of kids that don't know how to go in the refrigerator and make themselves a meal. I'm not talking about a sandwich. He can cook, so, and it's because he was around cooking, and he's been around cooking me, and he's seen it. So, if I need him to cook something, it won't be a problem. He just prefers to lay there and get waited on. I mean, it's kind of a natural thing that he has, So, it is different. But I know I can definitely rely on my children. I have 3 amazing kids. they're all different. Not by look, they look a lot alike, but they are all 3 totally different personalities. And I have an adult daughter Charity, who is figuring out life, and I respect how she's figuring out life. And I have to even the hard times of when you have to give that young adult that space to let her go ahead and do her thing, because it is a rough road to watch. I don't care if it's my daughter, my son, my niece, my nephew, my cousins. Watching them bump their head when you know they're going to do it, it's hard. It's for me, it's like watching an accident getting ready to happen. So I understand you won't hurt yourself bad, but I can tell it's kind of like being in a parking lot and you see somebody push a cart. You see people think they can just ghost a cart out and land inside the bin, and you can tell when they let it go that it was going toward the car, the beautiful white car, and you can tell it's about to hit that car from the moment they let it go. That's how I look at my kids sometimes. I know they're about to bump their head right here. But then there's that light at the end of the tunnel and say, hey man, I know a lot of people that didn't even get it together till they was 25. A lot of them didn't get it together till they was 30. And they found their way. I have family that I look at that it wasn't always where it's at now, but it's there now. Don't forget, it used to be this. Even for me, I wasn't one of those young adults that flew the coop right away. I stayed home for a while. And I was glad that I did it and that's why I tell my kids, that's why I told my daughter, I said, hey, you can stay here and not pay anything, but you can pay me to hold your money. And I hold your money every week. And then, you pay me every week. And when you're done paying me at the end of the year, I just give it right back. And now you got a little cushion. Take the time, because, trusting yourself is not always easy. So take the time and develop a cushion so when you get out here, the fall don't hurt as much. No. So she wanted to do it her own way. So now you have to do it your own way. It's okay. It's okay. It's just hard for me. It's hard for me. So watching them, sometimes it is definitely hard. But in terms of the love, you hear me say about my son who's autistic, and I share that because he's unique, very different, and he has his things that he likes. I picked him up from the prom and we were driving, and I asked, did he have fun at the prom? He said yes, he had a good time. And he told me, before he left, I told him, I said, son, you look like me, but you don't. I said, you look much better than I did when I was 17. I said, I had to grow into all this. You are a fine young man. And I'm like, I know someone's going to see you at the prom. I won't go into the details of the conversation, but I had a conversation with him. And then when I picked him up, I said, so how did it go? And he told me it was a fun time. He had good music playing. He danced. I said, you danced? He said, yeah. I said, you take your jacket off and dance? He said, I took my jacket off and danced. I said, oh, okay. I said, did you dance with anybody? He said, yeah, I danced with one young lady. I said, how'd that happen? He said, I asked her to dance. I said, you did? He said, yeah. I said, I would never. And he was like, really? I said, no. I said, here's the difference between you and I, though. I said, you went and asked somebody to dance, and I was sitting over to the side saying, please, God, don't ask me to dance, because I don't dance. I do not dance. And so he said, yeah, I asked her to dance. I said, well, how'd it go from there? He says, well, we started talking, but she clearly didn't want to hear about my drawings, and I could tell she lost interest in my art, so I just walked away and went to the bathroom, and I just found something else to do because she wasn't interested. And if you're not interested in me, I don't care. I don't want to talk to you. And I said, well, son, well, here's the flip. I said, here's the truth. You want to hear it? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, you do understand that you don't want to hear about anything other than your drawings either, right? And he was like, yeah. I said, so if you don't want to hear something that might be important or nice or kind to them, then why do you feel like they should want to listen to you talk about your drawings? I said, I just wouldn't have started with that. I said, next time, start with more questions about them. Ask more questions about them instead of telling things about you, because, yeah, you started with your drawings, and you are an amazing artist, and I know that's where his focal point is. I said, but, you know, you got to ease into the drawings. You know, sometimes people might not even know. I said, damn it, I can hold a note, but most people wouldn't know I sing, you know, even though I'm always singing. I said, but you know, no one, it's a part of my personality at this point, but not when I was younger. When I was 17, most people didn't know until I was bold enough to join the school choir and was in like 3 or 4 of the different choirs, and I still wouldn't sing publicly, and it was just only at church that I would do that. So yeah, if it's something that you develop, but, you know, son, I just told him, like, hey, man, you can't kick it can't throw out the big guns right away, you know, because some of this stuff is, you know, some people will like it and appreciate it if there's something that they're interested in. If they're not, it's what it is.
Wow, now that is a dad moment. That's a teaching moment. That's important. And I just want to just step back a little bit, because I'm going to ask you some questions, because you talked and alluded to your upbringing. I want to hear a little bit more about your story. But for the dad moments that you talked about, and it's funny because I was in my research, I was looking at some things, and one of the things, and this is number 6, right? A lot of the things you talk about so far. So this is from an article called The Psychologist's Guide to Raising Emotionally Healthy Boys. Number 6 says, fathers, confide in your sons. Fathers, confide in your sons. And another one, it says, defy gender norms. When you're talking about parenting and co-parenting, letting your children know, your son in particular, letting your son know that there are, and you talked about the roles, like, you know, it's eventually gonna come back to you. You know, it's gonna be a reflection of you, and so you have to make sure certain things are done, like decent and in order, right? Like it says, let the boys know that it's okay to ask for help. Another thing you alluded to, like, I'm listening to you and you are like going down this list. One of them is called, number 1 thing was share your day. Talk about your day. The fact that you have good days and bad days or ups and downs. You talked about that. It says don't trivialize how they feel. You talked about that. Like, you recognize that your children have feelings, and I'm specifically talking about your son here, but that he has his own feelings and thoughts, and you take the time to listen. Absolutely. That helps to build the trust. Spending time together. I mean, all of the, like, every one of these that you talked about, and you talked about validation earlier. And so, and this is one of the staff at Henry Ford Health Systems that's talking about healthy relationships for boys. And so, if you needed validation, you guys could co-author this article, because all 6 of them really have been fluid in your conversation and how you talk about your son. So I just, again, this is just another reason for our listening audience why he is the nominee for the Glenn K. Miller Award, Fatherhood Award. And blessings. So, I mean, I learned a lot, probably more than I knew before about you and your parenting role. However, so my number 2 says, tell us about yourself, about your beliefs, your personal philosophy, what makes you who you are. What do you think that is?
So, I am an avid Christian. I believe in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I put him ahead. I put him at the forefront of my thoughts in my day. I try to make conscious decisions, and I try to make things so that it will benefit everyone. I try not to just consider myself, but to consider everyone involved in whatever decision and things that I might do. I try. That's one of the most important things I tell my kids whenever we talk, and they know. I had to get my daughter back in school today, and as we were having this conversation, as kids will be kids and they will make bad decisions all the time. I've been telling them since they were very little, make good choices, make wise decisions, be a leader, not a follower. It's never too late to say no. And most times when they get in trouble, I can simply ask them that question: what do I tell you? And then that's going to be, if you just follow this rule to be a leader, not a follower, it's never too late. And in Erin's situation, it was a never too late to say no. She said yes to something that she should have said no to, and it got her in trouble. And she knew no was the answer, but she didn't. But at least you know. So you have to make these good choices. You got to make these wise decisions. You got to. If you don't think things through, I can make a quick decision when it's a quick decision and a simple decision that I need to make. Whenever it becomes impactful to other people, I need a minute. I need a minute. I even said that to you today. So I when I talked to you, I said, I don't want to, because one thing I don't like to do is commit if I can't. It will drive me crazy. What I just had to deal with within the last 45 minutes was a little rough. But I had already said I was coming. So I tried to make my best effort on trying to come, and I was peeking through the window, and I couldn't tell it. I didn't want to come in because I couldn't tell what the camera was at. So it was a little rough on me. But that's one of the core values that I try to keep, just making sure I consider all parties. And if I would have said to you no after I said yes, and went on ahead and did what I needed to do, because it was something I needed to do. There's a struggle going on, but I made the commitment. And then now, if I wouldn't have done that, I don't know who you would be talking to right now. It just wouldn't be me, So you would just be talking,
I would.
And
I got lots to say.
And that's fine. But
Right.
If it was set up for someone to be there, and you tell somebody that someone's going to be there, and then they don't show up, it's just not good. I'm not a fan of that. So I like order. I love order. Things are just simpler that way. So tell me what you want to do. And sometimes I find myself, when I see there's a space, as I've gotten a little older, when I feel like I think it through. So if I said to myself, I think that if I say this, they're going to say that. And if I say this, they're going to say that. And if they say this, I'm going to say that. So I'm not going to say that. Because I don't feel like it. The confrontation and, the most real thing that has happened in my world lately is anxiety. You can just get overwhelmed by the thought of what can take place. And doesn't mean you're soft. It doesn't mean that you are not a man or a woman and you can't handle things, but sometimes your body and your mind and everything is going to tell you, hey, this is not what I want to do, so I don't do it. And there's that guide. I'm careful. I'm careful. It's just kind of how I am. I try to be very, very, very considerate of people, and because I want people to be considerate of me, and that's the hard part, and this is the part that I struggle with, being considerate of people, and those same people not being considerate of you. It's a struggle. It's hard.
It is.
And so sometimes you just gotta find your way to bring it back, and understand that, hey, it's not about you. You do what you do, and people will do what they do. But don't let what they do stop you from doing what you do. Because a lot of times, all you doing is blocking your own blessing. Because the reason, and I'm sure I've said this to you before, I stay blessed. I brag on my God because I stay blessed. but I stay blessed because I stay with an open heart. I don't have to give it all, but I give a lot, and I give enough, and I give often, and I consider people. And because I do that, somehow or another, what I make is not enough to take care of these things, but it does. And I'm
The fish and the loaves.
very grateful because, sometimes we mentally say where a struggle is, and we all know how that powerful tongue can be. And then you say things, and before you know it, you realize, that's inaccurate. Everybody's on a fixed income. Truthfully, you get paid every week. You work whenever you get paid. It's based on, if it's not based on your own movement, it's fixed, so, you fix your life around it. And it's one of them things. It's just one of them things. So that's how I operate. I don't want to get off this subject.
Yeah. You were talking about your beliefs, your personal philosophy, and what makes you who you are. You have answered that.
So that's me.
So tell us about your journey in your career, business. Tell us about that. How did you get to where you are, being an entrepreneur?
My brother, I will always give him that credit. I was working at New Detroit Incorporated. It's a nonprofit race relations organization that did wonderful things and still doing wonderful things in the city. And I was working there, and it was during that time where the recession was happening and the big three were getting all kinds of loans and stuff from the government, and they were one of the number one providers for our income, and they were paying our salary. And the cutoffs and the layoffs was happening. It was a conversation. 1 second, you're fine. The next second, you're not. And when I got laid off, my brother had already been talking to us. He was retired from the military, and he was young, so he had a lot going on. Because I was 28, so he was 30, and my brother said we can open up a Coney Island in Florida, or we can open up a crab house in Detroit. I'm a Michigander. I have no intentions on leaving this city. I love it here. Give me my 4/2 seasons, and I'm happy. Give me my potholes. I'll avoid them. Because if I go anywhere else, I'm going to drive just like I'm thinking I see something, even if it's not. And it's crime everywhere you go. And it's just my home, I love it. And when my brother made the suggestion the first time, we sat in my parents' driveway, and I heard him. He's like, "We're gonna be rich." I said, "Hey," So he's like, we started selling some dinners and raising some money, and we never got a loan. So we never took out a loan. Everything just kind of happened. So once I got laid off, I was on board. So I told my brother, I'm on board. So what we gonna do? They like to cook. I kind of like to make some money. It kind of worked that way. My personality isn't. I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I have a way, and my brothers also had a way, and
the English hospitality.
We definitely have this aura about
that
ourselves,
yeah.
And so it's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
From there, my brother was driving down 7 Mile and saw a guy, Roby. Roby passed his house today. Roby was standing outside Treze's shop. It was his wife's salon, next door to Crab House, and he pulled up, and the guy said that the place was available, and he connected. And we talked to the lady, and she told us what she wanted. We said, we can't do that. And so she looked at us. She said, "There's something about you guys." She said, "I'm going to give you all a break." And she gave us a break. And we told her, I said, "With that break, don't worry about the building. We'll get it cleaned and get it together." And we were hands and on our knees and hands. My mother, everybody was all in, scrubbing and scraping, trying to get that building cleaned up. And we opened that little cafe building, and it was nice. And it was a show similar to this one. Her name is Mildred Gaddis. My brother went on the Mildred Gaddis show, and he made a big mistake and told Mildred Gaddis audience that we are a 5-star restaurant in the hood.